Okay, so welcome back everyone. In this episode, we're basically just going to set up our development environment for the rest of the course. It is going to be the tool that we will primarily use to do all of our coding and all of our programming in. And the tool is called Visual Studio, and it's made by Microsoft. Now, before I continue and we go and install this thing, I do want to reemphasize that I have those before you watch videos and articles linked down below in the description. It is uh, if you're a beginner especially, it's very important I think that you watch those just again you have a basic understanding of some of the terms and concepts we're talking about. So like for example, when I say IDE, which is Integrated Development Environment, you know what that means. That way it'll be much easier for you to follow along and you won't be so lost when we talk about certain terms or topics later on in the course. So basically what an IDE is though is exactly, it stands for that. It stands for Integrated Development Environment. And basically it's a tool we use to uh, speed up the coding process. Um, in industry, a lot of professionals use integrated development environments to help with coding, to aid in programming. There's a lot of cool features inside integrated development environments that help with the entire software development process that we'll see as we go along in the course. You can basically think of it as it's like a text editor, just with extra tools for coding. And in the text editor window, so like in Microsoft Word, for example, you would have your text editor window where you can type text and then you can make paragraphs and all that stuff. It's the same thing for coding, except instead of just editing text, we're editing code in that editing window. So I think if we download this thing and we look at it, it'll be a lot easier to understand what we're talking about. So let's do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go up to, and I just have Google open here, but you're just going to type in Visual Studio Community, and it's actually auto-completed for me there. So go ahead and click Enter, and you're going to click on this first link here, Visual Studio Community 2019. Now, Visual Studio, again, if you remember, I said was the Integrated Development Environment tool. It was that IDE. Now there's different versions of this tool that Microsoft licenses. So the community version is the free one, and that's the one that we're going to be using. To use the community version, all you have to do is have a Microsoft account that you can just log into, and they let you use it for free. Now it's really trimmed down. It doesn't have as many features as like the ones that are pay to use have, but for what we're doing, it's perfectly fine and it has plenty of features already. So we're going to go ahead and click Download Visual Studio. You should see a pop-up down here in a second. There we go. When that's finished downloading, go ahead and click Open, then click Yes. Click Continue here. It's going to actually download the installer for Visual Studio. And so then you're going to see this panel pop up, and all this is asking is basically what packages do you want to install with Visual Studio that will allow you to create certain kinds of projects. The only one that we really want is the C++ desktop development, and I think that's all we're going to need. They have other stuff here like game development with C++, that's if you're working with like Unreal Engine. They have mobile development too, but this should be all that we need for the time being is desktop development with C++. So we're going to go ahead and click install. Oh, and by the way, they have a panel over here on the right that just shows more details. So like when we click on this, you can see that a bunch of different things pop up here, and these are all just different tools that are being installed with this package since we have this package so selected. You can hear we have like the just-in-time debugger. We have a bunch of C++ tools, and we'll talk about some of these later on. But basically, just make sure you have desktop development selected, and we'll click install. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut the video off here, and I'll bring it back when this is finished installing. Okay, so once it's finished installing, you should see this panel here now without the blue bars, just meaning the tool was installed successfully. I have this one 2017 because I had the 2017 version installed a while back. So eventually you should see this panel pop up as well once it's finished installing. Now what you might get is if you're not logged into a Microsoft account, you might get a prompt to log into a Microsoft account. So go ahead and do that. Once you log in, you can use the tool for free, as long as you're using the community version, I should say. And then once you're logged in, it should bring you to this screen here. And then once you get to this screen, what we're going to do is we're going to click on Create New Project. We're going to click this button right here. Now on the right here, you see a list of different types of projects we can make. This is based off of that package we selected before. That was the C++ desktop projects that we selected on that panel before, if you remember. And because we selected that, these are the types of projects we can make now from that package. So we're going to go ahead and click on Console App. Click on this Console App here, because what this is going to do is it's going to generate some code for us automatically by default, just to give us kind of a skin to go off of. So go ahead and click Next. This right here is just going to be some configuration information for our project. You see project name. We're just going to call this. Project 1. This location here is just a location that the project's going to save to on your computer. And then solution name, you can basically store multiple projects within one solution. You can see the name kind of just changes automatically with the project name. So just leave that as it is. That's fine for now. We're going to go ahead and click Create. Okay, so you're going to see a new window open up. And now what you're looking at, this entire window, this is our integrated development environment. This is our IDE that I talked about before. This is the primary tool that we're going to be using as we go through this course in this series. So an IDE, again, is a tool that software developers use to aid in the coding process, in the programming process as they create software. What you see here, this window right here is our editing window. And by the way, we're not going to go through all of these tools now. I don't think it'd do anyone any good to cram all these tools into a video. We're going to kind of discover them as the series goes along. I think you'll be able to learn better that way. There's only a few things I want to bring your attention to right now. But this window here, this is our editing window. So just like in Microsoft Word, how you could write this, I don't know, this is a sentence. In Microsoft Word, you would use this window to write sentences, paragraphs, all that stuff. But in an IDE, we use it to edit our code. And you can see that Visual Studio, because we selected that console C++ project a little bit ago, it automatically generated some code for us here. So this is our editing window where we will actually edit our code. And don't worry about what all this means right now. This code here, we'll talk about all this in upcoming lessons, but all that this program does, because this right here is a C++ program that will run, all this is going to do is it prints hello world out to the screen. That's all this does. And again, don't worry about why it does that or how it does that at the moment. Just know that all this does is print out hello world to the screen. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this green text here. These are actually just comments. We'll talk about comments later, but basically comments are just a way to describe what your code is doing. Basically a form of documentation. So the other part that I want to bring your attention to is over here on the right. We have another pane, another window over here. This is basically just the project folder directory. So it just kind of shows how our project is laid out in our file directory, kind of like if you pulled over this, like your Windows file directory, it'd be the same exact thing. Except we're just seeing it in this window here in the IDE. The two main folders that we're going to be concerned with mainly in this, at least at the beginning of the series, is header files folder and the source files folder. And you'll see why. C++ has two different kinds of files. They have .cpp files, which is actually what we're looking at here, which is what this automatically generated file is, which is basically just our source code. And then we also have our header files, which is basically header files basically declare code ahead of time, so that way our the compiler knows where to look for something. But again, there's really no need to understand the difference between a CPP file and a header file at the moment. We'll be talking about that later on. But just know for the time being that at the beginning of the series, those are the two kind of files we're going to see most often. Mostly CPP in the very beginning. So the only other thing about the IDE that I want to really bring your attention to now is two features up here in this ribbon. There's the save features here, so we have just save and then save all. What save will do is, since we have project 1, .cpp open right now, it'll just save. Clicking save will just save this file. Clicking save all would save all the files currently that have changes in our project. So if we had like another file called project2.cpp and another file called project3.cpp, it would save all of those simultaneously if we hit that save all button. And then the last thing that I really want to talk about is this green arrow here. So what this green arrow is going to do is it's actually going to run our C++ program. Now, it would run it in debug mode. We can also run it in production mode, but we run it in debug to test our program before it's ready to be released to users. So for now, we're just going to keep it in debug mode, and down the line, we'll talk about the difference between running in debug and production. But just for now, just basically think this green arrow is going to run our C++ program. And so we're going to run this real quick, and all this is going to do is it's just going to print out hello world to a console window, and we'll see that here in a second. It'll print it out at the top of a console window. This is just an include statement. It's a preprocessor directive, so we'll talk about what those are later on. So this isn't actually really going to run. Basically, code's just going to be pasted here in place of this. But the only thing that's really going to run here is this hello world statement. It's going to print to the console. So let's do that real quick. And boom, there you go. You can see at the top it prints hello world just like we thought it would. And then it says press any key to close the window. So we're going to click enter. And there we go. We just ran our first C++ program. You just ran your first hello world program in C++. So I'm going to wrap it up there. We have the development environment set up now for the rest of the course. We have a basic understanding of what the edit window is, what it's used for, and how we can access different files in our project using the project file structure on the right. And then we also know how to save our changes that we've made to files in our project, and also how to run our project. So next time we're going to talk about, we're going to get started with the actual C++ syntax and code, and we're going to start actually learning the C++ language, and we're going to start with data types. So I will see you then.